Disclaimer. This video presents a historical account of King Sisavang Vatthana, 1907-1978, the last monarch of Laos, based on available records, oral histories, and historical research. While efforts have been made to ensure accuracy, some details may vary due to differing interpretations and limited documentation. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. It does not claim to represent an absolute version of history, and does not endorse any political or cultural perspective. Any opinions expressed belong to the narrators or cited sources, not the producers. We respectfully acknowledge that pronunciations of names and places may differ. Any mispronunciations in this video are unintentional and should not be regarded as a sign of disrespect. Viewers are encouraged to consult multiple sources for a fuller understanding of King Sisavang Vatthana's life and legacy. In the high, misted hills of northern Laos, where the Mekong River winds through ancient forests, lies Luang Prabang, a city of golden spires and sacred traditions. For centuries, it was the spiritual and political heart of the Lao kingdom. The royal family of Laos traced its lineage back to the legendary Kun Lo, whose descendants ruled from this city for generations, blending Buddhist devotion with regal ceremony. In the early 20th century, Laos was a crossroads of tradition and colonial ambition. French influence brought new schools, roads, and ideas, but the rhythms of Lao life, festivals, temple rituals, and royal processions, endured. Maps of the era show a land divided, French colonial boundaries overlaying ancient kingdoms, while the Mekong remained a lifeline for trade and culture. Into this world, Prince Sisavang Vatthana was born. Educated in both Buddhist teachings and European philosophy, shaped by the hopes and tensions of a changing nation. This is the story of Sisavang Vatthana, scholar, monarch, and the last king of a kingdom swept away by war and revolution. Born in Luang Prabang on November 13, 1907, Prince Sisavang Vatthana grew up in the shadow of gilded temples and the rhythms of royal ritual. Yet outside the palace walls, French colonial rule was reshaping Laos, introducing new languages, customs, and ambitions. From an early age, Sisavang was taught Buddhist scripture and Lao court etiquette, but he also learned French and studied European history. His tutors were both Lao monks and French administrators, a daily lesson in navigating two worlds. In his teens he was sent to France, where he attended the Lycée in Montpellier and later studied law and political science in Paris. Letters home reveal a young man fascinated by Western ideas, yet deeply homesick for Laos. "I am Lao, but I am also a student of the world," he once wrote. In Paris he walked the boulevards, debated politics in cafes, and witnessed the tensions of a Europe between wars. When he returned to Laos, the country was changing. The old order persisted in the palace, but outside, calls for independence and reform grew louder. Sisavang found himself a bridge, sometimes a battleground, between tradition and modernity.
He learned the rituals of the court as naturally as he read European law books. That duality would define both his strengths and the limits of his influence. In the palace he presided over Buddhist rituals and state ceremonies. In private he read French newspapers and corresponded with reformers. The prince's life was a careful balancing act, one that would shape the fate of a nation. To be Lao is to hold the past and the future in both hands, he reflected. For Prince Sisavang Vatthana, that meant living with the weight of history and the hope of change.
On October 29, 1959, Sisavang Vatthana ascended the throne after the death of his father, King Sisavang Vong. His reign began as Laos stood at a crossroads, no longer just a traditional kingdom, but a nation caught in the crossfire of the Cold War. The country became a stage for global powers, with the monarchy at the center of a rapidly shifting political landscape. As the Cold War intensified, Laos became a battleground for influence between the United States, the Soviet Union, and neighboring Vietnam. Foreign aid, covert operations, and diplomatic pressure shaped the fate of the kingdom. The king was forced to navigate a maze of alliances and rivalries, each threatening the fragile unity of his country. Inside Laos, three main factions vied for power: the neutralists led by Suvarnabhumi, the right-wing royalists under Boon and the communist Pathet Lao led by Suphanuvong. The king, constitutionally central but politically constrained, struggled to act as a unifying figure as the nation fractured along ideological lines. Maps of Laos from this era show shifting territories and contested borders, as alliances changed and battles erupted. The Geneva Accords of 1962 briefly promised peace, but soon the country was drawn deeper into regional conflict. Despite the chaos, King Sisavang Vatthana worked tirelessly to maintain national unity. He hosted peace talks, met with foreign diplomats, and appealed for international support. Yet, his efforts were often undermined by external interference and internal distrust. The monarchy became a symbol of continuity, but its power was increasingly symbolic. As the war escalated, the king's authority was tested by coups, foreign-backed factions, and the relentless advance of the Pathet Lao.
King Sisavang Vatthana's vision was to keep Laos neutral and united. But as foreign powers poured in, the country became a chessboard for regional ambitions. The king's diplomatic balancing act could not prevent the deepening crisis. As the conflict intensified, Laos endured bombing campaigns, mass displacement, and the destruction of villages. The king's appeals for peace were drowned out by the roar of warplanes and the advance of history.
The king postponed his grand coronation, a sacred rite meant to reaffirm the divine bond between monarch and nation. He declared he would not be crowned until peace returned to Laos. In his private journals, he wrote of sorrow and duty, watching as conflict made the ancient rituals impossible. The coronation never came. Across the country, newspapers and radio carried news of the delay. Some hoped the king's patience would help heal divisions, others feared the monarchy's power was slipping away as violence spread. In Luang Prabang, the palace gates closed early each evening. Ceremonial objects, crowns, swords, and sacred texts remained locked away, their meaning suspended in uncertainty.
For monarchs in Southeast Asia, coronation is not mere pomp. It is a rite that links the sacred and social order. Without it, the king's authority felt incomplete, his role as a living symbol of unity left in limbo. The people watched, uncertain, as the monarchy's influence faded in the shadow of war. In temples, monks chanted for peace, their voices echoing through halls where kings had once been crowned. The absence of ritual was felt by all, an emptiness at the heart of tradition. The royal throne, ornate and waiting, stood as a silent witness to a kingdom in limbo. The king's restraint was both a gesture of hope and a sign of the monarchy's vulnerability. In the palace gardens, time seemed to pause. The old order lingered in the scent of frangipani and the quiet footsteps of those who remembered what had been lost.
In the spring of 1975, the tides of war swept across Indochina. Saigon and Phnom Penh fell in rapid succession. By late August, Pathet Lao forces marched into Vientiane, their banners raised above the capital. The royal government, weakened and isolated, collapsed almost overnight. Crowds gathered in the streets, some in fear, others in hope. The palace, once a symbol of continuity, stood silent as officials from the new regime arrived. The air was thick with uncertainty and the weight of history. International headlines flashed across the world: monarchy falls in Laos. The king, Sisavang Vatthana, was summoned to sign his abdication. On December 2, 1975, the Lao People's Democratic Republic was proclaimed. The abdication was swift and somber. The king and his family were stripped of their titles. The palace gates, once open to ceremonies and festivals, now closed behind them, marking the end of a centuries-old institution.
I remember the silence that fell over the city. People whispered about what would happen next. For the royal family, it was exile without leaving home. Suddenly, they were prisoners in their own palace.
In the days that followed, the palace was emptied of its treasures. Portraits and royal emblems were removed. The new government moved quickly to erase the symbols of the old order. For the people of Laos, the fall of the monarchy brought both hope and fear. Some believed a new era was beginning. Others mourned the loss of tradition and stability. The fate of the royal family would soon become one of the most painful mysteries in Laotian history. The royal family's last public appearance was brief and heavily guarded. Soon after, they vanished from public view, their story entering the shadows of history.
For many, it was as if a light had gone out. The palace, once alive with ceremony, became a silent witness to the end of an era.
After his forced abdication, Sisavang Vatthana and his family were placed under house arrest in the royal palace. For months they lived in isolation, watched by government guards, their movements strictly limited. The king refused offers to flee, believing his presence might help protect his people. In 1977, the royal family was quietly removed from the palace and transported to remote detention camps in the northern mountains. Conditions were harsh: basic shelter, little food, and forced labor. Eyewitnesses later described the sites as isolated and surrounded by dense forest. International newspapers reported on the disappearance of the royal family, sparking concern from human rights organizations. The Lao government claimed the king died of illness, but survivors and later investigations described forced labor, malnutrition, and disease. Testimonies from former detainees and human rights reports reveal a grim reality. The royal family endured forced labor, inadequate food, and lack of medical care. Some accounts say the crown prince died in May 1978, with the king and queen passing soon after. The exact dates remain disputed. To this day, the fate of the royal family is a source of pain and debate. Official records are incomplete and often politically charged. What is clear is that the monarchy ended in captivity, and many survivors recall abuse and neglect in the camps. Today, the memory of the royal family is honored quietly. Memorials and plaques bear their names, and the story of their final years is told in whispers and in the records of those who survived. The abolition of the Lao monarchy in 1975 marked the end of a royal lineage that had shaped the nation's identity for centuries. Yet, the memory of the monarchy endures, not only in faded photographs and palace walls, but in the rituals, festivals, and stories that continue to bind Lao communities together, both at home and abroad.
For many, the monarchy is more than a political institution. It is a symbol woven into the fabric of Lao identity. Its influence is seen in the architecture of Luang Prabang, the rhythms of Buddhist ceremonies, and the reverence for ancestral traditions.
As a member of the Lao diaspora, I see how our communities in France, the United States, and Thailand keep these traditions alive. Festivals, music, and language classes become acts of remembrance, ways to honor what was lost and to pass on our heritage to new generations.
There are ongoing debates about the monarchy's legacy. Some view it as a source of unity and cultural pride, while others see it as a relic of a divided past. But nearly all agree that the monarchy's rituals and symbols continue to shape Lao identity, even decades after its fall.
Today, the royal palace stands as a museum, a quiet testament to a vanished era. Visitors walk its halls, pausing before portraits of the last king, reflecting on the costs of change and the endurance of memory. The story of Sisavang Vatthana, scholar, monarch, and exile, remains a mirror for Laos itself, a nation shaped by tradition, tested by upheaval, and still searching for ways to remember and reconcile its past. In the quiet flow of Laos's history, a figure stands who was both a crown of honor and a burden of sorrow: King Sisavang Vatthana, the last monarch of our beloved land. Born in 1907, King Sisavang Vatthana was more than a king. He was a father to his people. His reign was marked not by wealth or grandeur, but by humility, resilience, and devotion to the Lao people. He chose to live a modest life, always prioritizing the needs of his people. For instance, during times of famine, he shared his own food with the hungry, and in times of war, he led his people from the front. This selfless dedication, demonstrated in numerous instances, is what truly defined his reign. He guided his kingdom through the storms of colonial change, through war, and through the painful struggles of a divided world. When the throne was stripped away, he bore that loss not with bitterness, but with quiet strength. Even in the shadows of captivity, he remained steadfast, a symbol of loyalty to his country and of sacrifice for his people. His decision to abdicate the throne in favor of peace and unity, despite the personal cost, is a testament to his resilience and unwavering love for his nation. His final years were marked by hardship, yet his legacy shines with enduring brilliance. King Sisavang Vatthana reminds us that palaces or crowns do not measure authentic leadership, but by the unbreakable bond between a leader and their people. His legacy, a beacon of inspiration, continues to guide us. Today, we remember him not only as the last king of Laos, but as a man who carried the heart of a nation until his final breath. His story is one of dignity, courage, and devotion, a legacy that still echoes in the spirit of Laos. His reign continues to inspire our leaders, and his sacrifices remind us of the true essence of leadership and service. May his memory live on, not in sorrow, but in pride. We are forever grateful for his selfless service, and may the name Sisavang Vatthana forever echo as a reminder of love, sacrifice, and resilience. As the sun sets over the Mekong, the river carries memories of a vanished kingdom and a king whose story still echoes in the hearts of his people. His crown was not merely metal and cloth, it was a symbol of continuity in a land of rivers, temples, and rites. That continuity was broken, but the stories remain, framed in family photographs, whispered in temples, and held by those who still remember. In the quiet rooms of the royal palace, visitors pause before faded portraits, reflecting on the costs of change and the faces behind history's great ruptures. Yet across Laos and in distant lands, Lao communities keep traditions alive. Through festivals, music, and the gentle rituals of daily life, the spirit of a people endures. The story of Sisavang Vatthana is a testament to resilience, humility, and enduring hope for reconciliation. To remember is to honor both loss and possibility. Blessing.